We're heading out the first month of the NBA season. So let's look at some of these teams that surprised us and pick the most surprising team. And starting off with the Clippers, what is wrong with this team and do we think they could turn it around?
Man, I don't know what's wrong with the Clippers. I guess you could point at some of the injuries they've dealt with, but really, I'm concerned about whether they can turn it around or not, even if guys start coming back. I guess I got to start with Kawhi Leonard, who's out right now. The whole purpose of like bringing in James Harden and kind of re-signing him was so that when Kawhi would miss games, which you know he's inevitably going to do, you have this other superstar who can kind of carry the team through those times. And right now, we're not seeing that from Harden, and then some of these other pieces they've brought in aren't really helping either. Like we talk about how bad Bradley Beal was in Phoenix, and sure that didn't work out. He's been a lot worse with the Clippers so far, and he's also a guy who deals with injury problems from time to time. So if these guys aren't around, Bill, Kawhi, and then Harden is unable to carry this team to wins. Like we know the head scratching opening season loss they had to Utah. They just dropped two straight to Phoenix. Like these are bad losses. These aren't good losses. They're not losing to good teams. They're losing to bad teams. I don't know what to think of this team. And they're old on top of all that. So you can't really expect guys to like step it up anymore to help them win games. So I'm really concerned about the Clippers.
Yeah, me too. I used to think they would be a team that could turn it around, but I'm looking at this and I don't know. I mean, there's the off-season drama. Now we see Ty Lue's name kind of getting mentioned with his job security. The problem is this, like to Prince's point, this team is old. So if they keep losing, if it keeps going south, if you're the front office of the Clippers, you're not going to be like, oh, we're building something, we're playing for the future. These guys got to go. Like you're probably doing a fire sale. You're starting clean. I think the biggest problem they have, at least on the court, is their defense. Last season they were ranked, I think it was third in defensive rating. This year they're 26th. They've had a massive drop off, and I think it might be some of that age, but it just seems like these guys aren't really gelling on the court either. It's their communication isn't the best. And Prince mentioned this, the guys they brought in, some of them just haven't panned out. Another guy I'm looking at is Brook Lopez. They signed him to a pretty big deal, and he was already old, and he can stretch the floor, but he's just not producing offensively, and he's not even getting enough minutes to impact the defensive end. Even though they have him, they have Zubac, they have John Collins, they have some height, but it's just not working. And I think the biggest problem they have is that defense.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's the distractions before the season, the distractions during the first week. We won't have a ruling on the Kawhi stuff until after the All-Star break. So this team, as their position, they could possibly lose out Kawhi for the rest of the year if they want to make a suspension on him. We don't know if Ty Lue's name is going to be brought up and some type of punishment is going to happen with him. Right now, it just looks like he's just been at the wrong place at the wrong time. But there's just so many distractions coming in. And like you said, it's an unction. As a somewhat old head, when we think we're ready to party and, you start pre-gaming, man, sometimes the unction get cut short. And I think with this team, they just probably the fun probably just ran out. Kawhi's hurt. Harden's not looking good. These are the two pieces that you need to have some chance in the West. And like you said, the additions, they're not working out as well. I think they should probably look to get a little younger if they're going to try to make a run into the playoffs. But, the unction, cool. It sound good. But once you get all them old heads together, you realize, man, this ain't going to be what we thought it was.
Yeah, if there's a little bit of room for grace with this team, it's that we know we've heard before when you throw a bunch of really good players together, sometimes it takes a while to gel. So that's the hope, is that maybe it's just taking a while for Ty Lue to figure out where these guys are best positioned to succeed next to each other. James Harden doesn't seem like the easiest player to necessarily play around if you're someone like a Bradley Beal coming into a situation trying to learn. You're used to being on the ball a lot. You got to learn your spots on the court, where to go when James Harden has the ball. So maybe there's some hope that eventually this thing gels. But right now, they really look like they miss Norm Powell and what he could bring offensively, because the defense isn't going to be what saves this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing is they just give the ball away. Like you watch those games, and they're just so many turnovers. And I think to that point that both of you made, if it's new pieces, you do have to kind of figure out how guys play, where they like to hang out on the court, when they make those cuts, things like that. That should improve. But like James Harden is an experienced ball handler. I mean, he there's no reason for him to be one of the top turnover guys. And it's just they're just sloppy. It's inefficient. It looks messy, man. I don't know. I don't in a Western Conference that's loaded. Like, yeah, maybe they'll improve a little bit, but you can't be dropping two in a row to the Suns. Like, there's some serious problems here.
Going from the West, let's look at East standings, and you have the Pistons as the number one team. This team started off a little slow, but has ripped off 6 straight wins. Could the Pistons truly be the top seed in the East by the end of the season?
Oh, I could see it for sure. I mean, really, we look at that that playoff series last year. Like, you could have made a case that they were the better team. I mean, they got kind of hosed on that call. Not even kind of hosed. They got hosed on that call. It's a completely different series if that goes differently. Um, they have they have a good coach in JB Bickerstaff. I think he's one of those guys that maybe the longer he's with the team, some of his stuff maybe grates on players. But right now they're in that honeymoon phase still. Things are going well. He's improved the roster. Cade Cunningham is playing out of his mind. Jalen Duren, I think, has been incredible. He's developed a mid-range game, and they're buying into defense. I mean, I saw uh, one of the games recently where he was on Asar Thompson because he was in the wrong spot, and like really, like you can tell they bought into that, and they're embodying that sort of like, I don't want to say it's the old school Pistons because it's not like that, but at least they have that physicality and that mentality. The question I always have with them, and this goes back to last year, is shooting. Do they have enough perimeter shooting to really sustain the offense when Cade is getting bottled up and maybe can't get to the rim?
I gotta say no, man. I like what Detroit can do, but right now they rank in the second half of the league in terms of offensive rating. And it's really hard for me to see a team that relies so much on one guy to generate offense finishing the season at the top of the conference. I can't think of the last time a team that's so reliant on defense has done that. Don't get me wrong, we know the Thunder were a really great defensive team last year. They were also really good offensively. Same thing with the Dynasty Warriors. Like, those people forget, those were really great defensive teams too, but they were also the best offensive team in the league. Right now, Detroit, I think, is a little too one sided. They do have that guy, Cade Cunningham, who looks like he has the skill set to potentially be maybe the best player in the Eastern Conference. So it's hard to doubt them completely. But if you ask me today, can they be the number one seed by the end of this season? I'm going to say no. I still think I would trust a team like Cleveland to get healthy and kind of climb up there. I think they're right behind Detroit right now. New York is still in that picture. So I think I would still go with one of those teams.
I'm gonna say yes, and I think because Cade Cunningham could be the best player in the East by the end of the season. I think Giannis, best player. He doesn't have to prove himself. Cade is still having to prove himself. He made the All-Star team, and we've seen him be with this team when they were at the lowest of lows, losing 25 games, and he's been around. He's been part of this new culture they brought in last year with guys like Tobias, and watching him last night versus Sixers, he took over that game in the fourth quarter. He took over that game in the third quarter. He is driving down full speed, hair just out looking like the guy off NBA Street Stretch, and he's attacking the rim hard. Like the way he's playing right now, he could keep this up throughout the rest of the season. Like it's nothing that he's relying on the shot to fall. Like this guy is just putting the ball in the basket, and he's got shooters around him. Duncan Robinson looks like the old Miami Duncan Robinson. The way he's getting the ball in the corner, shooting threes. You got guys playing defense around him. I think that's really what would allow this team to be good in the East. You can stop players in the East and win a game. The West a little harder. They got well-rounded teams, but in the East, the best team might be the Knicks. Outside of that, what are you doing versus the Bucks? You got to stop Giannis. What are you doing versus Sixers? They stopped Maxey in the fourth quarter. They don't have to worry about too much in the East, and I think that's why they could be a team that could be the top seed. With the Cavs, it all goes through Donovan Mitchell. When Mitchell doesn't play well, that team is not good. They do have a lot of pieces around him, but it goes through Mitchell. And Cade is a person where I'm like, hey, you might need to scrap that up. Or we got Thompson. You know what? Hey, guess what? We can just throw bodies at guys and cut the head off the snake with a lot of these teams in the East. And they've got the experience of the playoffs last year. They did get cheated by a call. So not only do they probably have that in the back of their heads, like, hey, when we get back, we're going to show that we're not going to allow a referee to dictate a game. And like I said, K might be the guy that blossoms the most of a star this year based on where they were when they came into this season and where they may end up at the end of the season.
To that point too, I mean, I hear you talk about kind of like how they match up against those teams in the East. They're almost built to stop a lot of those teams because even though Giannis is, I agree, I think the best player in the East, like Jalen Duren makes life more difficult for him. And then even when you can throw a SAR on him, at least in the like up court just to slow him down so that, it's he doesn't have those straight line drives. We saw what they did against the Knicks. I mean, I think the problem the Pistons had last year in the playoffs was they gave up some of those huge runs to New York, and that's what really did them in. But on the whole, like, they defended them really well. I think the Cavs, when they're healthy, might present more of a problem. But again, that depends on what Evan said with Donovan being his best self. So I look at them and I really do think they match up. They match up well with pretty much anyone. So yeah, that's why I think. I mean, I had them going to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. So I think highly of them. But again, I still to Prince's point though, the offense sometimes and the shooting really does concern me.
And to be fair to Detroit, they do. Tobias Harris has been in and out the lineup. We think Jaden Ivey will be back at some point, so there's room for improvement offensively from within. But I just look at the Eastern Conference. The last few years, the best player we would say has been Giannis or Joel Embiid, one of those two over the last few years. And how many times have they finished number one? Like, it's really hard when you rely on someone as much as those teams used to rely on those guys in the past and still do to some extent, especially when guys have usage that high. Some injuries might pop up. What happens if Cade has to miss a few games? I think Detroit would be in real trouble at that point.
I mean, I
The
think
last oh,
too,
go ahead, go ahead.
they could also make a move. Like, they could trade a piece or two, get a scorer, or get somebody that could take the ball out of Cade's hand, or just wait for Ivy to come back and put less load on him right now. But if they could get a shooter, like, let's say if the Clippers blow it up, Bill wouldn't be a bad piece if he's willing to play a role where, look, Cade can get you the ball in spots. It ain't gonna be like Harden where he's just dribbling out, like he's going downhill attacking. But maybe that second unit, you can kind of be the guy that we play through. Now, that would be a great addition for him. I don't know how much they would have to pay for him, but like they could add a piece and fill some of those holes offensively. It ain't gonna change the whole offense, but if you're taking the ball out of Cade's hand or giving him a break and you have somebody you can rely on, that could be a big difference maker.
Yeah, the last point I'll make is the thing I want to see from Cade to really believe this is kind of what we saw with Tyrese with the Pacers last year. When the game is on the line, can Cade be that guy that is the ball in his hands? He's going to take the shot. He wants to get to his spot, but he still gets there and he still takes a shot and he still makes it. And I mean, the Pacers were a fun team to watch. They had a lot of things going for them, but they don't do that if Tyrese isn't like dominating in the clutch. I mean, I don't think we've never seen a player make that many shots late in games in a single season. I don't expect Cade to get to that level, but if they go deep, they're going to have to win tough games, tight games late against very good teams. And that's when I want to see Cade really elevate his game.
So we talked about the Clippers. We talked about the Pistons. Who's a team that surprised you for good or bad so far this season?
The Suns, I'm a little bit surprised by. If for no other reason, I expected them to be one of the worst teams in the NBA this season. And it's early, I know, but they're 500 right now, and they've gotten there by winning like 4 of their last 5 games up to this point. So I just think when you look at what Devin Booker's doing right now, he's trying to put himself in the MVP conversation again. He's averaging about 30 points. And it's going to be on him all season if they're going to stay afloat the way they are, because I don't think they have the necessary pieces to actually be a competitive team. So far, though, Mark Williams has been a double-double machine. Mind you, they're doing this without really Jalen Green, who they traded for. He's been out the lineup. Dylan Brooks hasn't really played much. He's been out the lineup, and they're still staying afloat in the West. So I think you got to give Phoenix credit for that. I don't expect it to last very long, but shout out to Devin Booker and what he's doing right now.
I'm going to go with another team in the West, but I'm going to go with the Trailblazers. I mean, you start the season, tough loss against the Timberwolves, and then the very next day your head coach is arrested while you're sleeping. Like, you would expect this team to just collapse. And it's not like they improved last year, late in the year under Chauncey, but it's not like they were an established team out west. And then Tiago Splitter comes in as the interim, and he's basically got them playing pretty competitively. I mean, they have some excellent wins. They were the first team to knock off the Thunder. They beat the Nuggets. They beat the Lakers. This is a team that's competing, and they're doing it in an interesting way. I talked to Tiago Splitter recently, and he basically told me, we looked at the roster and we realized we didn't have a player who could dominate in pick and rolls. So we just got rid of it. they're basically running kind of like the offense Memphis was running last season before they made that switch. In fact, one of the assistant coaches they hired this offseason, Patrick St. Andrews, was with the Grizzlies. So they're incorporating a lot of that sort of off-ball movement and just like, it's just you pushing pace and transition, which is something that Splitter did when he was with Paris basketball. But Denny Advia is playing really well. Drew Holiday's sort of stabilized the defense, along with Tumani Kamara, who's like becoming an incredible defender. They're looking pretty nice. I don't know that they're like play-in window nice or playoff nice, but given what they went through those first 48 hours of the season, I'm really impressed with what they've done.
The team that surprised me, it's the Pacers. Like, we didn't expect much of you with Halliburton being out, and then, you lose Miles to the rival Bucks. But my God, 1-9, you're the team that got the Brooklyn Nets their first win, which is something that I called. But this team looks terrible. And I get it. They got the injuries, and you don't know who's coming in and out the game. But if they're doing this to get a top pick, I applaud you, because this is really going to help you next year when Tyrese is somewhat back. He had the late injury. There's no reason to have him come back this year, especially with the team that's 1-9. I thought this team could possibly compete for a play-in spot. I even had Nembhard as a potential most improved player. But this team looks like they may pack it in by the end of the month and just say, hey, our best guy's not here. A lot of you young guys can just get minutes, similar to what the Warriors did the year when Steph was hurt and Clay was out. Just let these guys get some burn, get a top pick. You never know. Get a Boozer twin, come in. Now you got a big, but I didn't expect them to be this bad. This team competed in the finals without Halliburton. I thought we would get, at least a team that competed. This team getting blown out by 30. So to me, it's just surprising how bad they are, even though we didn't really have much of an expectation for them coming in.
Yeah, I was going to say, speak for yourself if you didn't have expectations, because I thought the Pacers were a borderline playoff team coming into this year. But you did say you thought maybe playing tournament. I was in the same camp. This is a lot worse than I was expecting from them. But I will say the two guys we thought would probably lead this team besides Pascal Siakam, Ben Mathurin, Andrew Nembhard, those guys have been out. They've been missing games with injuries. And so at that point, if you're going to not have those two guys, ball handlers, Tyrese Halliburton, we know is out. At that point, you kind of got to expect them to be a lot worse than we were expecting them to be. Once those guys come back, though, we can still see this team make a little bit of a run.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, first things first. Y'all notice how Evan snuck in? I called that. Of course, he had to.
Hey, man, look. I said the Brooklyn Nets would get
You
their
did.
first
You
win
did.
versus the Pacers, okay?
You did.
Do I like that I was right? No, I like this Pacers team. I didn't think the Pacers were going to be 1-9 to start the season.
I'm just saying, but that was last week. But you're bringing it up now. It's just interesting there.
Hey, man,
but
look, man.
Just wanted to let us know how wrong we were.
Yeah,
We get it.
Hey, look. In 24 hours, everything changed from what we said. But I put my eggs in the Knicks basket, and they won. That's all I'm saying.
So the question with the Pacers I have is they were pretty close to the luxury tax window, and I know they don't want to pay that. If things keep going this way, do they start shipping off some assets to try to recoup?
Oh, yeah.
Because I think if Tyrese is still young, like he'll rehab and everything, and hopefully with the way surgeries go, like he should at least be close to the level he was. But like he's the face of the team. I think Mathurin, I think he would be a starter on most teams in the East. So I think they'll have some interesting decisions to make, because I think at this point you just say this year is not, you have to consider it a wash. But man, if they can put some more young pieces around them, pieces that fit the system, where they're sort of playing that organized chaos offense, where guys just feel comfortable going ISO and just attacking the rim, they could really be set up, I think, for the future once Tyrese gets healthy and hopefully the rest of the guys get healthy.